Hi y'all, welcome back to this video on applying Kant's categorical imperative. In Kantian ethics, morality is grounded in reason, autonomy, and respect for moral law. Actions are morally right only when performed from duty, not for self-interest or for the sake of outcomes. Kant's categorical imperative is the unconditional moral rule that applies to all rational beings. It has two main formulations, or two tests: the principle of universalizability and the principle of humanity. So first, let's look at hypothetical versus categorical imperatives. Kant distinguished between hypothetical and categorical imperatives like this. Hypothetical imperatives depend on goals. If you want to pass the test, you need to study. Categorical imperatives command unconditionally. Tell the truth. Moral worth lies in the maxim or the principle guiding the will. The only good without qualification is the good will. That is, the motivation to act from duty out of respect for the moral law. We have a whole video on the goodwill. It's 10 minutes just on the goodwill and motivation. So if you have a question about the goodwill, take a look at that video. But for those of you who don't have 10 minutes for that video, here's a brief refresher. The goodwill is the foundation of Kantian ethics. To act morally is to act from duty, not inclination. The goodwill means doing the right thing simply because it's right, guided by reason and respect for the moral law. So the first formulation of Kant's categorical imperative is called the principle of universalizability. Act only according to that maxim you can will to become universal law. What does that mean? So, starting out here, at the top of this slide, you'll see a maxim is a personal rule for action. So, if you're going to test for the principle of universalizability, what you have to do is you have to make this personal rule for action. Then you have to ask, what happens if we universalize that action? What if every person all over the world, all the time, every day took that action that you're thinking about taking? Is that world in which every person all over the world, all the time, every day is taking that action a rational world, a rational way in which to live? Can this exist without any kind of contradiction? If there's an internal contradiction in that world, or if that world would be an irrational world, then the act that you want to take is an immoral act, and you should not take it. The second formulation, or test of the categorical imperative, is called the principle of humanity. And here, what you need to do is treat humanity, and yourself and others, always as an end, never as a mere means to an end. This means respecting the autonomy and rationality of all people. If you deceive people, if you lie, if you manipulate, if you use other people as a means to an end, you're denying them their dignity, and you're also, in instances where you're manipulating or deceiving someone, removing their ability to act rationally and act with autonomy because they don't have all of the information in a situation. So if you use someone as a mere means to an end, what you've done, or if you plan to, then what you're doing is immoral, and you should not take that act because it fails the categorical imperative. So, for this class, this is how we're going to apply Kant's moral rules. First, we're going to identify the action that you want to take in a situation. Next, you need to determine the motivation for taking that action. Are you acting out of a sense of duty, doing the right thing because it's the right thing and for no other reason? Or are you trying to obtain some sort of result from your action? Next, you need to form a maxim or a principle. Fourth, you're going to apply the principle of universalizability to that action that you're going to take. Fifth, you'll apply the principle of humanity. And last, you'll evaluate the moral worth of that action based on dignity and respect for the moral law. Okay, here's an example for you. A student considers lying to their professor about illness to get more time for a project. First, the motivation. The intent here is self-interest, not the goodwill. Lying for an advantage lacks moral worth. So Kant would say to stop here, but we're going to continue this analysis for the sake of the illustration of these principles. So in this situation, the maxim would be, everyone should lie. When we apply the principle of universalizability, we would see that in a world where everyone lies all the time, every day, all over the world, trust and communication will collapse. This is not a rational world in which to live, so it fails the first test. When you apply the principle of humanity, you see that lying deceives and uses others as a mere means, which denies their autonomy and dignity and rationality, failing that second test. So the conclusion of your analysis here should be that lying is always wrong, regardless of the intentions or outcomes. Kant's categorical imperative provides a rational method for moral reasoning based on duty, consistency, and respect. Actions are moral when they can be universalized and when they respect humanity as an end in itself. Moral worth lies in reason, intent, and respect for moral law, not consequences. And here we have a few reflection questions for you. What does it mean to universalize a moral rule? Why is it wrong, according to Kant, to treat people as a mere means to an end? How does the categorical imperative help test whether an action is ethical? All right, y'all, that's all for now. If you have questions about how to apply the categorical imperative, please send me an email and let me know. If you're interested in more videos on Kantian ethics, philosophy, and other theories of ethics, take a look at the videos posted on our channel. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.